There's too much of toxicity, it's masculine toxicity out there. And we've kind of confused what it means to be a man, what it means to be masculine, where you've got this trope out there that you've got to be tough and, angry and lash out to be strong. It's just the opposite.
Hey guys, welcome back to another special edition, I'm going to call it, of Survival Dispatch News. And today I'd like to welcome back my buddies from the Righteous Savages podcast, Dave Kemp and Jon Wheaton. How you doing, guys?
Doing great. Denny,
Good,
how are
Denny.
you?
I'm fantastic. If I was any better, I'd be twins, I think, right now. I like to use
Well, Dave
that
and I are
any
twins.
chance
You
I
can
get.
probably tell.
I can't. We were joking just prior to kicking off our recording. There's a little bit of difference in the size there of between you guys, and there you go.
I feel like, you know what? I feel like I'm about to have my mugshot taken. I got like this is 5 foot, this is 5.5. And I'm got a little bit to be desired here compared to John working on it. That's what this podcast is going to be about.
Yeah.
More
That's right.
masculinity.
Yeah.
We
We're
are
gonna get him some
talking about
platform shoes and
being taller.
All right. Hey, before we get into this topic, which is masculinity, John, it's our tradition to read a conflicted question from conflictedthegame.com. And what is our conflicted question of the day?
okay, this is a doozy. Your family has been without food for quite some time now, and things are beginning to look bleak. You stumble upon a group of people who are friendly enough to barter goods with you. You have a small supply. They have a small supply of food that they are willing to trade, but will only accept your only firearm as payment, since this is all you have of value. How would you react to this situation? What would you do?
Woo! That's a doozy of
Got
a
two
question.
gun guys asking that question too.
We're supposed to answer this now or later.
No, we're going to answer it later. We're going to answer it later. We want, okay, viewers. So there's the question. Would you trade your only firearm for food if you had none? And we'll read that question again. We'll give our opinions. We're going to ask Dave. We're going to have John. I'll give my opinion as well. And who knows, we may all agree on this opinion or have some really interesting ideas. But let's jump right into the topic. It's the masculinity crisis, guys. And this is definitely a crisis in the United States today, if not essentially all over the world. The topic of masculinity. It is such a hot topic right now. What has happened to the men in this country? What is going on?
Well, there's definitely a trend, I guess you could say, of the 18 to 25-year-old men in America leaving a little bit to be desired when it comes to this topic. And I think here's the thing that gets my attention the most is, we can talk about how, maybe some 19-year-old or 22-year-old is not as masculine or manly as whatever, I think they should be. And that's just our opinion. But where it really matters is in real life jobs and situations like the military. Like we cannot have a society in our military that cannot step up physically, have the mental will and resiliency to get through hard times, to do hard things. So many people are growing up in a world of everything is super easy. You don't have to work hard for anything. And, so for a lot of people, that might not have any long-term negative effect. But as a country, as we get ready to try and figure out how we're going to survive the next 80 years, who's going to be the ones in our military, in the Marines and the Army, charging on the front lines to do the hard stuff. And that's where, for me, I sit back and think, well, it's not just a topic we talk about on a podcast. This is real. This is a real problem that is going to really affect this country at some point in time. And so hopefully we can get this turned around. It's going to be maybe a long road. It takes a long time to turn around an aircraft carrier, but we got to start pushing it. And we've got some ideas on how to do that. But I think when we talk about this stuff, it really does have a real life impact on our communities, our country, and it's really something we need to do something about, even though a lot of people are talking about it and maybe not getting a lot done, but we need to start working on this.
Yeah, John, Dave mentioned, the importance of masculinity to, the military in this country. What would you add to that as far as just the basic family groups, masculinity, and how it affects a healthy family?
Well, it's everything because masculinity is something that has a propensity for leadership, and we are the tip of the spear. And as fathers, husbands, and leaders in our homes, we have to be the protectors, the providers, and that is so important for the family unit. A country is made up of communities, and those communities are made up of families. And if you don't have those cohesive families, it starts to break down. I think that's what we're seeing. We have the lowest rate of marriages going on, so families are not getting started. Lots of single mothers and guys that just seem to be checked out. They'd rather be playing video games and streaming, their Call of Duty than they would actually starting a family, starting a career, and leading their families and communities to do the right thing.
Yeah, and here's another real world example of that, where you have a good male role model in the family that could be leading and directing the whole family. In my law enforcement career, we would go to domestics were probably the number one call we would go to. And you go into these families, you go into somebody's home, and it's a single mom. She's working 3 or 4 jobs just to pay the bills. You got kids running around with no dad, no uncle, no, adult male around. And the mom, she can't take care of everything. And so you've got kids growing up with no direction and no
Yep.
standards, and they're missing the part that a good male role model could provide in that situation. And we've said this before, not that a single mom can't take care of kids and love their kids and be responsible, but just in our DNA, there's something missing for kids growing up that need leadership, they need direction, they need standards in order to grow up, morally, ethically, being able to be resilient. Resiliency is such a big thing that you have to go through hard times to be stronger. And this has nothing to do with masculinity necessarily, but I remember watching, I think it was Jamie Foxx who did the Ray Charles movie years ago. And there's a scene in the movie when Ray Charles is like 4 or 5 years old and he's just gone blind and he's fallen down. He's in the living room and he can't find his way around. And he's calling out for his mom, like, "Mommy, please help me." And she's sitting over in the corner crying, bawling her eyes out, but covering her mouth, knowing that if she goes and helps and fixes everything for this kid, he's never going to grow up to learn how to take care of himself.
Yeah.
Man, what a tough thing. I don't know how many families are really going through that anymore. Everything is provided, everything is given to them. We see so many kids, 10-year-old kids that are 250 pounds. There's no direction and standards. And the easiest way for us to get that is the strong male role model in that family.
Exactly. I agree 100% with what you guys are saying. And in my mind, I'm thinking, families that don't have that role model or that healthy relationship that the kids can look to and see what a good healthy relationship looks like between a father and a mother, and a good strong male that's going to be protective, keep the family safe, provide, serve all those traditional roles of a father and a man as we know it, us three here and many of our viewers, hopefully, the way they look at it. The kids just don't have those healthy role models, those healthy examples of relationships to see.
Yeah, I can remember when growing up, my dad just constantly doing something, either wrestling in the floor, throwing the baseball in the yard, doing things, physical things together. It doesn't mean we're,
teaching how to ride a bike.
Yeah, exactly. And there was that physical contact with a dad, with a male role model. There was always something going on one-on-one, and it made you, it just built this compassion inside of you. It built this resilience. And man, I can't imagine growing up without that. It will leave such a hole. And then when there's a hole, you start to fill that with other things. And a lot of times it's other things that are not very healthy for you.
Yep.
That's exactly right.
I would say that really for men, and we talked about this recently in one of our episodes with a local guy who's a business owner, Matt Short. And if you guys want to check that out, that's really a great episode.
That was men need to meet the standards, I think is what you titled that.
That's what I was going to say is
just a couple weeks
standard setters in our homes. Men set the standards. And if
Yep.
we don't set strong standards and we don't actually hold accountability to our children and to our overall household, then things are going to crumble, things are going to
Yep.
fall apart. And so if we're not there being the standard bearers, then that's something that men were designed to do. And I believe that
Yeah.
that is really the failure of what's going on in our culture right now, because we have so many men that they won't even pursue relationships with the opposite sex. I mean, it's insane. This generation coming up right now, they're and this is kind of weird, they're having sex less, but they have more access to pornographic material, to all of this stuff on the internet that just diseases your mind and
Yeah.
turns you into a zombie. And we can consume all of that, and we don't even want to get out and pursue a real relationship with a real person. We'd
Yeah.
rather just be plugged into this matrix or whatever that is just constantly feeding us garbage and causing our minds to just disease
Yeah.
away.
I don't know if it was Sean Ryan or somebody on the old interwebs the other day, had a guest on talking about kids and having cell phones and internet access. And a lot of parents will say, well, your kids will have access to the world with an iPhone. And in reality, the world is going to have access to your kid.
Amen. That's right.
Scary. I'm like, holy smokes, that's a scary thing to
Talk
think
about
about. The
flipping the
entire,
tables.
7 billion people that can talk to your kid, send pictures of your kid, videos. And that's that's a whole nother show there, but
Yeah.
that's a scary deal.
There are some scary, creepy people out there that would like nothing more than have access to your children. And for no other reason than that, we should be monitoring what our families are doing, setting standards, and not allowing that stuff in our homes.
Yeah, please
Yeah.
I would say one of my biggest advice when it comes to electronics is just please be aware. Kids are getting phones and tablets younger and younger and younger. I think it's just part of society, but you just can't assume nothing as bad is going to happen. You have to assume horrible things are going to happen.
Yes.
You control the access to it. You check on them. You make sure that somebody's looking over their shoulder. You have to do that stuff. I mean, we see it. I can remember, just when flip phones came out and there really wasn't internet access, but it was when flip phones were out. I'm dating myself here. It was just people, especially in the law enforcement community, cops are kind of have a sick sense of humor sometimes. It was just the craziest pictures. It was texting pictures and videos to people. And it was like, this is filthy. I don't want my kids to pick up my work phone and see what people are sending me. And then it went to iPhone and went to a whole nother level of bonkerness with, the internet and websites available just at fingertips. So please, parents, pay very close attention. Their kids are not going to be able to control that. And imagine the damage is being done to some of these kids, 5, 6, 7 years old, that are seeing things that nobody really needs to see in the first place, but really shouldn't be seeing them until they're, old enough and an adult.
Yeah, for sure. I want to kind of backtrack a little bit and just give my thoughts on a couple of things. Growing up, I grew up with my stepfather as my father, as my dad. My parents were divorced when I was 2-ish years old. I didn't even, really remember. I don't have memories of that. I grew up with my stepfather as my dad. He was a he's still alive, thank goodness. Great man. Very, very good example. I respected him, and I was a little bit afraid of him when I needed to be, because I knew that when I misbehaved, I was going to have some corporal punishment for that. By that, I mean I got spanked, and every time I got spanked, I deserved it 100%. And I'm not warped, and it didn't make me a serial killer or turn me into a crazy person. And my biggest fear was disappointing him, to the point that he would need to pull me aside and say, boy, you're going to get a whooping. And I didn't want to do that. So a little bit of healthy fear, respect for my father as being the disciplinarian in the family, and just thinking about all these kids growing up without the father figure. And I'm not saying every kid needs to be afraid of their dad. I'm just saying that father figure to that man to be there, to be respected by the kids and leading by example. And the lack of that father being in that family system, what kind of effects it has where the kids don't have the guidance. I also know, and I have friends who are divorced and have 50-50 share their kids with their spouse, 50% of the time. And I know for a fact that the kids act differently when they're with mom than they are with dad. Sometimes, at least with this specific family. And I know there's definitely an effect there as well. But I want to backtrack a little bit and talk about your podcast that you guys did a couple of weeks ago with Matt Short.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. Who is Matt? What was the discussion? Where did that conversation go?
Yeah. So Matt is a local entrepreneur, I guess you could say. He started a supplement company, Stacked Supplements. Shout out to them. If you are a supplement guy, you lift weights, any of that kind of stuff, they're a great resource in the Midwest. A lot of stores. But then he started a line of testosterone treatment clinics. And that has been a huge need in today's society, because I don't know how many people are aware of this, but we're at a 50-year low for testosterone levels in males. 50-year low. And I think there's a couple of contributing factors in this. I think that the food that we get, if you're buying food that's not real food, I call it fake food, and I eat it. I'm not saying, I'm not perfect, but I eat Oreos. That's not real food. And we've got wait, what? Yeah.
I thought they had eggs in the side.
Yeah. But we're given all of this stuff that's garbage that causes just to destroy our guts, to destroy our bodies biologically. So I think there's a couple of things going on. I think there's a biological aspect to this. The food that we eat is not good for us. It is not building our bodies up. And so one of the first things that a lot of these chemicals that they put in the food attacks is testosterone, attacks your hormones. And so if you're on eating a diet of that constantly, it's going to cause your body to stop producing that. So I think that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, I think, is a cultural thing. I think that we're seeing a shunning of what we would call masculinity. I'm not talking about the roid heads that are, out there, or the guys that are trying to get all of the girls, that kind of thing. I'm talking about real men, guys that go to work every day, that raise a family, that fear God, that are just pillars of the community. We've lost a lot of that in the last 50 years.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And I think that is the other contributing factor. Is it is not praised to be a good man anymore. It's culturally, it's anything but a man. And that's what you see with, there's a whole nother podcast you could do about what's going on with the gender confusion and mental illness and all of that stuff. But what you're seeing is the fruits of 50 years of us not giving men, the praise that they need for what they've done. I mean, they built society. Men built society, and most of the hard jobs in this world are done by men. There's a guy that I was listening to the other day. He said, if every woman walked off of their job tomorrow, society would continue. It would be hard, but society would continue. If every man walked off of their job, society would crumble, because most of the hard jobs are done by men. And we're talking about
physically hard jobs, not necessarily talking about who's smarter.
Yeah, no, and that's not
physical stuff.
That's not what we're trying to say. It is, but we're saying that men do have a very, very big role, and there's nothing wrong with you saying that, because statistically that can be proven out. Men are the ones that are on the fishing boats out in the Bering Straits catching all those fish, and bringing that to your table. Men, predominantly police and military are made up of men, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's what men have, this natural propensity to want to conquer things, to want to do hard things, and that's how God made us.
Yeah, Dave, in that podcast, Matt was mentioning sort of this trend of males and being treated for depression, and doctors prescribing antidepressants, and just this whole thing. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. And it was kind of shocking, really, to talk with Matt through this, because you go see your family physician, and you're not feeling so good, and just your energy's low, and there's you're a little bit depressed. And so doctors these days, And maybe it's a conspiracy with pharmaceuticals. I don't know, but it seems like family doctors, their first go-to is, well, I'll tell you what, I'll write you a prescription for this medicine, this antidepressant, this thing. Here's some pills. Go take this. Even though the guy that just walked into the doctor's office is 80 pounds overweight, never gets out and does any exercise, doesn't do anything physical, eats like crap. The doctor never asked them, hey, maybe have you ever thought about, doing something about your weight, exercise, eating better? That's never that. I've never had a doctor, even once, that I can remember talk to anybody that I know, family members, anybody says, hey, what are you eating good? It's always, well, we've got this medicine that just came out. Let's try this. And
Yeah.
not to say that there's some great medicine out there, but man, doctors are really prescribing stuff. And I think maybe we started talking about this back when kind of ADHD kind of, really started coming on the scene as far as kids and having these issues and couldn't pay attention. And so, we'll give them all this medication and maybe that does, help certain things, but it seems like just the pharmaceutical overload on humanity is crazy. And I think a big aspect of it is the money side of it. It's a huge business, and doctors are motivated by money to prescribe this stuff and just keep people medicated, keep people probably sick. Obviously, it's going to be better for the pharmaceuticals if you are 80 pounds overweight and
Yeah.
you're not very healthy, because then you can keep coming back to the doctor, keep getting medicine, keep getting treatment. And so I was just shocked to really understand from Matt's perspective and his experience with doctors and insurance that, man, doctors are really letting their patients down in 2024 and for the last 30 years of not focusing on people's health and like, how can we get you healthy? And it was a really, really curious conversation.
Yeah, my last physical checkup, which was not too long ago, I'm surprised my doctor didn't ask more questions about my physical fitness, because I'm 55 years old and I'm pretty fit for my age, because I do exercise a lot and I do lift weights and I do cardio and I eat relatively well in a healthy way. And he called me. He said, "Wow, man, you look like a 40-year-old. You look 15 years younger than you are." I'm like, great, I work at it. But he didn't ask me how. He didn't ask me what my routine was, or really anything about my exercise. He says, well, let's do some blood work, check your everything out and make sure, things are good.
And what's not surprising really is that your doctor probably doesn't know the first thing about a good exercise program. All he would probably tell you is walk on a treadmill for 30 minutes, 3 times a day, and then call me in a couple months. Like, how about that doctor help take care of you? Like, you're the patient.
Yeah.
Let's try and keep you as healthy as humanly possible. And I don't see that aspect hardly ever. And man, I don't know how that's going to change. We did talk with Matt about kind of the new, I don't know, maybe things will change. Maybe people will get sick and tired of paying, your doctor $2,500 for an office visit, or people will get sick and tired of going and spending $9,000, because you stubbed your toe and now you're in the ER. And maybe just by sheer force of will, we can start coming up with other solutions, other types of insurance or whatever it's going to be. But there's got to be another way to start to manage healthcare, because it's not sustainable. It can't last this way forever.
Yeah, healthcare and pharmaceuticals are tied into politics in a really kind of heavy, serious way. And you mentioned something just a little bit ago that stuck in my head about, maybe it's a conspiracy. Do you guys think that low testosterone is a real thing and the government wants it that way for some reason?
I think that really when you talk about, and it may not even be the government, but definitely I would classify it as elites. We have this, we do have this separation of everyday people and people that would be elites. I would guess you could call it, the people that think that they should rule over other people. And these aren't necessarily elected politicians. A lot of times these are people that are in these either government agencies or they have a lot of influence inside of those. And I do think that to a certain extent, they don't want strong men. They don't want men that are going to question things, that are going to say, yeah, no, we're not doing that.
Stand up for your rights.
Yeah, I think that the biggest example of how far we've fallen is COVID. 4 years ago
Yeah.
when COVID hit, I honestly expected 2 weeks into that there would be guys out there be like, nope, we're opening these businesses. You're not doing anything about this.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen, and months and months and months went by. And then you had a lot of the stuff coming out that, these parents were staying at home with their kids, and they saw some of the stuff that was being taught in these public schools. And it's like, that's a whole nother subject,
Oh yeah.
then you see the videos of these, these school board meetings, and it was like all moms. And I'm like, what in the world's going on? Where are the dads? Where are men at in this
Yeah.
fight? Because, we need men and women to be standing up and fighting in this fight, because I do think that there is a certain level of conspiracy in this, that, they want us to be weak and controllable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whatever means necessary, we have to do that. They want us to weak, they want us to live in the pods and eat the bugs,
Yeah, exactly. Have you guys seen these ridiculous runway videos with the models, the male models, wearing ladies' clothes and high heels and dresses and carrying purses? And you know what I'm talking about?
No, Denny, we have no idea. I don't know what you're watching on YouTube late at night.
Well,
I've
I've
got your
seen them.
subscription.
What got suggested for you last time you jumped on there?
Listen, it's real. It's out
yeah.
there. It's a thing. What in the
you
world? What role does media play in molding the norms of masculinity today?
Well, that's huge. I find it interesting. I don't know. I'm gonna make an observation, and I don't know why this is or what the answer is. It seems like most effeminate men are probably liberal leaning, and most masculine men are conservative, politically speaking. And maybe that's what I think. I don't know if that's really true, what the stats are. From the people I know and have talked to, it just seems like that's how the way the things shake out. So I don't know if it's because of a a gay or a straight thing, or if that's got some play in it. But it does seem like there is an affiliation, like certain groups of people are pulling, want this type of person to be on their side. And it's just kind of an interesting, it shouldn't have anything to do with it. Politics shouldn't have to be anything to do with how masculine or effeminate you are. But it seems like there is a pull. There is, an attraction from one side or the other. And it's kind of interesting how that always seems to separate people, polarize people into certain groups.
And I think that one of the other things is, what are we incentivizing? Whatever is being incentivized in culture and pop culture is typically the stuff that you see start to pop up. I actually saw a stat the other day that there's like 25 major A-list stars that have, gender non-conforming kids now.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Well, to me, that's a symptom of incentivizing that behavior, because, there's a lot of statistics on this that confusion about your gender is, there's actually a diagnosable disease that's called gender dysphoria. And almost 85% of people that are diagnosed with it come out of it by the time they reach their teenage years. And so what we're seeing a lot is that these doctors are diagnosing these kids as, well, you're the wrong gender. And and they start doing life altering changes to these kids' bodies or their chemical makeup through drugs. And all of a sudden, these kids are scarred for the rest of their life because maybe they had a little bit of this disease or disorder that they would have grown out of, because most of the time for boys, testosterone doesn't really come into their lives until they're teenagers.
That's right.
Puberty. Yeah. And if you stop that process, then you're changing the chemical makeup of a child. So when they become an adult, they're never the adult that they would have been.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of street interview videos lately where some man on the street would go out and talk to some random woman or person and say, "Hey, I got a question I want to ask you." And like, okay, it said, if a 12-year-old boy wanted to go through some type of gender transformation, start taking different hormones, get surgery, do you think that they should be able to make that own decision based on how they feel about who they are? And the answer is almost always, well, sure. I mean, they know what gender they are. They chose their gender. They know how they really feel, how they were born, and so yeah, they should be able to make that decision on their own. The next question is, what do you think a 12-year-old boy or girl should be able to walk into a tattoo shop and get Post Malone tattoos all over their face? It's like, oh no, they shouldn't be able to do that. I mean, like, well, what if you mean that 12-year-old should be able to get their parents' permission first or ask somebody, or, well, and the answer is almost always, well, it's just such a permanent decision. It's like, well, you just said somebody could change their
Hello.
gender, but
Yeah.
now a tattoo, like, that's
Yeah.
absolutely not okay. And people somehow, society through the media are getting brainwashed that the most ridiculous things are okay and normal, and the normal things are weird and all messed up. And going back real quick to pharmaceuticals and kind of this whole is a conspiracy or whatever, I find it very interesting. I try to be a very observant person, and when I watch TV at night, and you watch, pharmaceutical commercials are like 80% of everything, every commercial, for Ozempic and Skyrizi, and you can sing all of these pharmaceutical songs because there's so many of them. I would say probably 60 to 70% of every pharmaceutical commercial is also a commercial teaching you that you should accept these alternate lifestyles. It's either, a gay couple, or which seems the proportion seems extremely high. There are gay people in our society. They're great, nice, awesome people, but the pharmaceutical companies are trying to convince me that I am wrong for believing that straight people, like, you have to convince us somehow. We're going to teach you. We're going to show you so many commercials of
Mhm.
what normal is that one day we're going to teach you what normal really
Yeah.
is, even if you don't truly believe it. And I'm like, what is this? If you're going to sell me Ozempic, just have a doctor tell me how great Ozempic is. Don't have
Yeah.
some culture lecture on me, basically telling me that I'm not smart enough. I don't know enough to know what right is. And it's just very weird that pharmaceutical companies are so deep into that.
Yeah. John, I want to talk about a term that we've all heard, and it's been floating around for a few years now, and that's toxic masculine. I know you can fill in the blank.
Yep,
Masculinity.
masculinity.
What is toxic masculinity? Is it a real thing? Let's talk about that.
It absolutely is a real thing, but it's not what you think.
What is
So,
it?
Tell us, what do you think?
so toxic masculinity, in my opinion, are the guys that we see that are not doing what men are supposed to do.
That's kind of a flip flop from
Yeah.
what the media tells us,
I
that
think that
toxic
is toxic
masculinity.
because what that does is it breaks down a culture and it breaks down a society. When you have men that are
Interesting.
not willing to step into the roles God designed us to do, that culture and society need
Yeah.
us to do. When you have that, and I think we have a lot of that, either failures to launch, guys still living in their parents' basement, playing video games, I mean, the streaming world is just insane. And I mean,
Yeah.
we're on the
Oh, I
internet,
know.
we're trying to grow our brand on the internet. But I mean, the whole streaming, get on TikTok for 5 minutes and scroll through and you see guys streaming, all night long Call of Duty. And it's like, man, I understand you have all this following and stuff, and that's kind of like your drug or whatever. But
Yeah.
you need to be raising a family. You need to be actually pouring into the next generation and
Yeah.
worrying about the future of where we're going as a nation. And I
Yep.
think that is actually toxic masculinity. Men that don't actually want to act like men.
Yeah. Or I would even
Yeah.
say selfish
Yep.
masculinity. Guys that are so absorbed in themselves. They're not have a servant type of leadership where they're focused on their wife, their kids, their family. Who else? I used to tell my kids, when you come home from school every day or from your life every day you get home, you should be able to answer one question at the very least. What did I do for somebody else today? At least, I mean, one thing, and it could be as small as opening a door for some lady walking in the grocery store. At
Yeah.
least your mindset should be, what is there anything that I can do for somebody else to help them out, to make their lives better? You should be like Terminator goggles on, looking for those opportunities to be able to do that. But if it's just all self-absorbed and you're just making videos of yourself on Instagram and being selfish and abusive to
Yeah.
women, and just obviously that's toxic. It's a selfish masculinity. But when you have the servant style leadership, that's when, hey, we need Samson. We need as masculine as you could possibly get. And that's where people get it twisted, I think.
Yep. And I think that there's a pothole on both sides of this. And there's this new movement on the right, and some people may not know this, but on the conservative side, I guess I don't even call them conservatives, but it's the red pill movement. There's a lot of this on the internet right now, and one of the most prominent guys in that is a guy named Andrew Tate. And
What is the red pill movement?
So red pill it's I call it male feminism. It's the extreme the other way, that women, the extreme side of feminism actually says that, women can do no wrong and men are all the problem. Well, red pill is the opposite of that. It is men can do no wrong and women are the problem. And it's both of these sides have nothing to do with personal responsibility, because I know a lot of dirtbag guys and I know a lot of dirtbag girls,
Yeah.
and if you're that kind of a person, it doesn't matter what your gender is. If you're a bad person that's going to treat others badly and be selfish,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what your gender is. So we got to be careful of the potholes on both sides. Like, I really want it to be balanced, that each one of us, men, we take personal responsibility. And Dave just said it, servant leadership. When I say
Yeah.
men are supposed to lead, I'm not talking about tyrannical leading. I am talking about, you're the servant. And we have a perfect example. We're men of faith. Jesus is the perfect example of a servant leader. What did he do with his disciples the night before he was crucified? He washed their feet. He served them. He taught them. He led them by example.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
we have to do.
And that by example is huge. In the Old Testament, God talked about loving your neighbor as yourself. The New Testament description of love is Jesus telling people, love people like I love you. That's different. That's big time different than just loving somebody like you would love yourself. Loving somebody like Jesus loved you, like that's the ultimate way to love. That's what they call the agape love. Like, this is, you can't love anybody more than that. And so it's just it's a different mindset to think about how you are going to be focused on other people in your life. It starts, it definitely starts, it starts with yourself. It starts then with your family, your extended family, your job, your coworkers. Man, man, we can make so much of a difference if we just focus a little bit of our time every day on helping out one other person some way, somehow. Maybe it's just talking to them. I think I told a story about one of my podcasts about a guy that was walking to go jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, and he left a suicide note at home that says, I'm going to go kill myself today, but if one person stops to talk to me on the way, I won't do it.
Yeah.
He did. And so it's proof that not even one person stopped to talk to this guy. So just a conversation with one person.
Yeah.
Like, hey, how's it going, man? And a buddy of ours named Robbie Smith. He's a pastor at Redemption Church here in Southern Illinois. He goes around and talks to people at wherever, at gyms, it doesn't matter. And he doesn't go, preaching at people and tell them they're living wrong. He just walks up to a lot of people and says, hey, is there something I can pray for you today?
Wow.
Pray for you for. Like, wow, that's pretty unassuming. And people's guard goes down. It's like, it shows that you're actually trying to help somebody out and you're concerned about them. And so that's the type of attitude we're trying to encourage.
Yeah. So what can we do to defeat this masculinity crisis? What can we do for the young people? What can we do for mature men? What advice would you give? What are we going to do about this?
I think that it starts with each person, and then it starts in a community. It's like, what we say is, we're trying to build a brotherhood of men that hold each other to account, that don't slack off when things get hard, and that really have accountability to themselves, because that's really where it starts. Introspection, being able to look at yourself and say, yeah, I'm not so hot in this area. I need to develop and lean into that weakness and make it a strength. And I think that it starts with, getting alone in a lot of ways and being able to assess yourself honestly and say, hey, these are the things I need to work on. Maybe I need to give up the amount of time I spend on screens, and focus
Yeah.
on, if you're a single guy, focus on, how can I build a better career so that when the girl comes along, when that person comes along, I have everything ready and we can start a life together. To the married men, I would say, start leading your families.
Yeah.
Not like a tyrant, like a servant. Step into that, lean into that. This was one thing I was going to say earlier was children need their mothers when they're young, when they're toddlers, when they're infants, that nurturing, that, that feeling of love, that's when they need their moms. When they're teenagers, both boys and girls need their fathers.
Yeah.
Boys need their fathers to give them those rites of passage to become a man. How do I become a man? And they need their fathers to lead them into manhood. And for girls, they need their father to show them the kind of man that they should find to live their life with.
Yeah.
So that's really my synopsis of how we start moving forward.
I think that means number one, leading by example.
Yep.
Man, and we talked about with Matt Short about it, like setting the standard. You need to set the standard. Like, what is the standard for how we're gonna, be healthy? What are we gonna eat? What are we gonna do, as a family? What's right and wrong in our family? Setting that standard, and then reaching out to other people and sharing that with other people. I regret in my 29-year law enforcement career that I wasn't more vocal with people about what I believed in, about my faith, about personal things that were important to me. And so as you get into a position of leadership where you've got a little bit of street cred about what you've done and what you've gone through, take advantage of that. People are just yearning for that style of leadership and information. And you might think, well, no, I don't have any street cred. I haven't done anything. You would be surprised, just being 40 years old or 50 years old or whatever, just making it to that age might give you enough street cred to go talk to some younger guy that you work with at your job or your office or wherever. Like, hey, man, I want to share something with you. Do not be afraid to start sharing your personal beliefs and ideas with people. If you just sit back in your own little bubble and cocoon, everything will stay just the same. We have got to infect other people with, that righteous, savage attitude.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, when people start realizing that, hey, man, I just had a coworker come tell me about some things, and now I'm motivated. I'm pumped to do this too. And it spreads like wildfire if people start talking about it and start sharing it. So share the high standards you have in whatever, your faith, your health, your fitness, recreational, whatever. Share that with people and start, teaching them the way, so to speak, and be an example in person for them.
What can we do politically to fight this masculinity crisis, if anything?
That's a probably even a bigger, we're in an election year, and I think it's actually looking for the people that are good leaders, people that are proven leaders, and they're principled. I think that principles is something that we don't talk enough about. If a person is principled, then when a tough decision comes, they're going to lean on those principles. And if they have a foundation that is honorable and moral, and for me, it's even like a spiritual side of things, you would want to have those people in offices giving voice to your what your views are and what you actually want to see the country shift towards, or even turn back towards.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately pretty skeptical when it comes to anything we can do politically. Just watch the news today as we're recording this. They tried to impeach Mayorkas in the Senate, and that was just a disaster. Nothing means anything anymore.
Yeah.
Like Republican, Democrat, those words don't mean anything. Everything is a circus, especially on a national political level. Everybody's trying to arrest everybody. Everybody's getting impeached. It's like what? Nobody's doing, the political side. Nobody's writing laws anymore. When's the last time Congress passed a law about something? Like, good grief. It is, and it's circling the drain. It really, truly is. So on a national level, I don't know. Obviously, vote. Who you vote for matters in a lot of ways. Our suggestion is don't vote for president based on who's morally the best person. I think there's a lot of bankruptcies in both candidates out
Yep.
there. So we can't just say we have to vote in the best person humanly that there is out there. There's not a lot of politicians that fill that completely anyway.
That's right.
I think big picture, like what's this person going to do for,
Yeah.
the border, for, for the rights of the unborn, for the things that are really big and important. Like, how is your candidate going to help fix those things? And so I would focus that on a national level. And on a local level, it's much easier. A lot of times, smaller towns, we live in the Midwest, where it's very easy to call up a local state rep, and they're probably going to answer the phone and talk
Yeah.
to you because they're in their office, and we can do things on a local level just by speaking up and making phone calls and that type of stuff. But once again, it used to be who you voted for and what you believe politically was like the dark secret. Like, don't, oh my gosh, you asked that person if they're a Democrat or Republican or who they voted for. And I think some people are probably still scared to voice that, but I think we need to not be afraid to voice that, because there's other people that would love to speak up, but they're too afraid. And all of a sudden they see a couple of guys on a podcast
Yeah.
or somebody else, all the guys on Survival Dispatch, like, and all of a sudden you do start to build some momentum with people who aren't afraid to make a decision and to stand up for what's right.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
I think that a good rule of thumb would just be vote against incumbents and vote in primaries. Get the people that have been in there for 40, 50 years out of office. These guys don't. We need to demand on a national level term limits for all these. There's no reason 80-year-olds should be making the laws for the future generations. Their generation is past.
Yeah, and that goes for Republicans and Democrats.
Absolutely.
Both.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Across the board.
Like, come on, I give people like Trey Gowdy and these guys that were doing a great job, as in Congress or Senate or wherever. And like, no, you know what? We're going to be in there for a couple terms and get out of there, and it's time for the next person. And that's got to be, if we want everything, some equilibrium in the country, there's got to be that ebb and flow. We cannot just have one group in power forever and ever. And I'll tell you right now, I'm a diehard conservative, but if we have one group in power for too long, all of a sudden the people get greedy. People start doing the things they're not supposed to do. And you gotta get something different going in there. So it can get dangerous regardless of who's in power for too long.
What's on your mind, John? I see something. I see the gears turning.
So, yeah. So I actually was reminded of this the other day through a short video. Somebody I follow on Instagram, and she actually pointed out that at the time of the founding, we look at the picture of the signing of the Declaration, and it looks like a bunch of old white guys, right? Like you look at that picture, that painting, it looks like most of those guys were like 35 and younger.
That's
Alexander
right.
Hamilton was
That's right.
21 years old when the Declaration was signed. There were a couple, like I think Aaron Burr was his name, was 18. I mean,
Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson was 33 years old. Benjamin Franklin was considered an elder statesman at like 47, So like we have this built-in like thought, and I think it's something that's been fed to us, is that like all of these founding fathers were just old white men trying to protect their fortunes. And it's like, it was the polar opposite of that. These guys gave up their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor to build a new country. And
you talk about a masculine group of guys.
Yes. There were guys that, I mean, they could have gotten a lot of money from King George, in all honesty, to have made this little rebellion go away. And they could have been, kings of America. Yeah. No, they chose something better. And I think we need some young, vibrant people in our political process that have maybe some new ideas to bring back the old idea that was America, the ideology that was America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it was an idea.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, tell us about Righteous Savages. What's going on with you guys? Where can we tell our viewers to find you? And what's happening?
Yeah, man. Well, we got a lot of stuff going on. So this summer, 2024 should be really busy for us. So we've got some training coming out. So essentially we are headquartered at Tombstone Gun Range and Training Center in Marion, Illinois. So you can check out tombstonerange.com to check out some range info and classes coming up. So me and John are running the training aspect of that, which is under the Righteous Savages umbrella. You can check out a lot of our training videos that we've done from previous classes on YouTube. Just go to Righteous Savages on YouTube. We got a bunch of video content there. We should be starting a Patreon pretty soon as well. So please get on the YouTube, subscribe to that. We do the Righteous Savages podcast. You can check that out on Apple, iTunes, and Spotify, and all the 5,000 places where you can get podcasts. So we've got that stuff going on. So we're really excited about trying to do a lot of training. You know, we're definitely, you know, from my law enforcement career and John's shooting experience, we're trying to really kind of bring a new style of firearms training to civilians mainly. We do also, you know, law enforcement classes and a lot of other stuff as well. But we want to kind of start this type of training where, yeah, we're going to do rifle and handgun training, and we're going to do some TAC medic training and all that tactical cool stuff with the flair of faith built into that, so we can take time in class to talk to what's really important, like we're talking about today.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of great guys out there, John Lovell and a million other dudes that are very faith-based in what they do. But we really want to make that a part of what we're doing in our classes and our training. So it's not just going out and shooting a bunch of rounds and driving off in a hurry. We want to spend time building each other up and building this community of like-minded believers. And if that's something you're interested in seeing and hearing, please get on to tombstonerange.com or just righteoussavages.com. Righteous Savages on YouTube. Check that out. If you're interested, we would be more than happy to have you out and get you involved in some of our training. May 4th and 5th, we've got a weekend called Tactical Weekend. We're doing 5 or 6 different classes, hanging out at nighttime, campfires, talking, sharing stories, sharing faith. It's going to be a really good time. So if you're interested in getting together with some like-minded individuals, definitely check out the Tactical Weekend coming up May 4th and 5th. That's going to be a good one. And I think John might even have some goodies here he's wanting to show off.
Yeah.
What you got, John?
So we
Sell
just
as well.
launched Righteous Savages coffee, and this is locally roasted.
Oh,
We have 2 different, well, let me put it in the camera. We have 2 different blends. This one is a shout out to Mr. Dave Kemp. It is the Banger French Roast. And we got a little flashbang on there for a shout out to him.
Nice.
Our other one is an espresso blend, and it is the Afterburner. I was in the Air Force for 12 years, and this is a shout out to my days in the military. And it's really good coffee, locally roasted, and very, very fresh. You get it. It's going to be less than 2 weeks old. So it's very fresh coffee, and we've gotten nothing but rave reviews from those that have bought it. That's available on our website.
and I
Also-
will say that the law enforcement flashbang version is much more masculine than the
You know, us Air Force, we just drop bombs on people. We don't
Just
actually
saying.
get our hands dirty.
Yeah, just whatever. The choice is yours.
And then we
You
also
got-
have mugs too. These mugs are really
Awesome.
cool. They're camper mugs, very masculine, and they will keep your stuff warm. We've got great shirts. We're actually wearing a couple of them. We also have a new one out that is "Comfort is your enemy." That's what it says, and it's a statement that's, I think, very, very prevalent. I think we need to get out of our comfort zone. So those are available on our website, righteoussavages.com. You know, if you want to support us, that's a good way to do it. Like Dave said, we got Patreon that's going to be launching here in a couple of weeks.
Awesome.
So we'll have some custom behind the scenes content and some training that you guys won't see on YouTube. And we're really looking forward to launching that and seeing how interested people are in seeing what goes on behind the curtain.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
our YouTube channel is pretty new. We just started it at the end of last year. I think we got 14,000 subscribers or something right now.
Oh, that's going to go up.
We're brand new. We got a couple viral videos on there, but we want to entertain. We want to have a good time.
Yep.
We want to laugh. We want to. Life isn't all super serious. You know, we've got to have part of it is the entertainment side of things and having a good time, and that's a big aspect of what we want to do. And it's just, you know, otherwise just lose your mind and go crazy. So
We also
Yeah.
have another thing starting next month, and this is called Iron, Lead, and Jesus. And this is going to be a monthly event, and we'll probably have some signups online for that. And it's going to be something that we're partnering with a local pastor where we do some weightlifting, we do some shooting, and we do a little bit of other physical activities, and then we tie all of that into our faith. So
That
that's going to
sounds
be
great.
a great, for a Sunday afternoon for you guys that want to get out and meet some men, that are like-minded. That's what that's going to be all about, and it's coming up real soon too.
That sounds awesome. I want to get involved in that. I would encourage all of our viewers, make sure you check out these guys, Righteous Savages. Go to righteoussavages.com. Check it out on YouTube. You guys are on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Oh yeah, every social media, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey,
TikTok.
you know what time it is? It's time.
Oh, it is time to answer
read the
question,
conflicted, to answer the conflicted questions. John, will you read that again for us?
Yeah. Let me pull it up here real quick.
So many options here to answer this question.
Okay, here we go. Your family has been without food for quite some time now, and things are beginning to look bleak. You stumble upon a group of people who are friendly enough to barter goods with you. They have a small supply of food that they are willing to trade, but will only accept your only firearm as a payment, since it's the only thing you have of value. How would you react to this situation, and what would you do? I mean, I already know my answer.
Okay, we got to flip a coin between you guys to see who answers this first. Any volunteers? All right, Dave, what do you say?
No, I'm not getting rid of my gun. I don't care. It'd be tempting if
I knew
somebody
you were
walked
going to
up.
say that.
If somebody walked up with a big, barbecue buffet, you hadn't eaten in weeks, and all of a sudden it's just, pork shoulder and baked beans and French fries. Like, you might want to, but you need to resist. You need to resist that urge and keep your guns, for crying out loud. And, you can, like John was saying, you can hunt with that joke. There's obviously a million things you could do.
Yeah.
And I guess, of course, I wouldn't rob the nice people that just showed up wanting to,
of course not.
to barter. But, this is the apocalypse. I don't know.
This scenario, we have to
might
remind
come
our
out of
viewers,
that one with a gun and food.
Yeah, we're talking, this is a hypothetical post-apocalyptic. The SHTF has happened, and it's that's the theory behind this question, and so on. So, John, what do you say?
I'm in the same boat. I'm not giving up my guns. I'll, that's your means of defense. That's your means of being able to get food. That's a short-term answer to a long-term problem, in my opinion.
Yeah. My answer is the same. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if I have a firearm and I have ammunition, why haven't I killed some food for my family? Why have we been hungry all this time? And so on. I will not give up my firearm. I'll find some way, dig deep and find some other way to get food. I certainly wouldn't get rid of my only firearm in this scenario.
I'd be skeptical. I would, in the back of my mind, I'd be thinking, this is probably the Democrats come to try and confiscate my gun. So trying to sweeten the deal. This is a gun buyback.
Well, my biggest issue
I see what's happening here.
My biggest issue is that the fact that I would only have one gun in this situation. I would have had to trade some of them off already.
Something bad, really bad has happened.
A lot of these questions lead me to ask that. Why do we only have one? Why is there only one gun? Why is there only 20 rounds? What kind of prepping did these people even do, or training, or in order to survive things that are coming? What a great discussion. We actually went quite a bit longer than I thought we would today. I want to thank you guys for joining us, Righteous Savages. Make sure you check them out, viewers. And tell us in the comment section, how would you answer that question, the conflicted question, and what would your solution be to this question of the masculinity crisis in America today? And let us know, do you believe it's a crisis? Maybe you don't. But those of you that do, tell us why you think it is a crisis. And those of you that don't, hey, tell us what you think as well. We do read the comments. We do try to respond to questions. And by all means, make sure you subscribe to these guys, Righteous Savages, on their YouTube channel. We want to grow their viewership. They're our kind of guys. You will see them again, and we endorse everything they're doing and talking about. So any parting comments on the masculinity crisis before we close out today, guys?
Just thanks a lot, Denny, for having us. When we're done, we're going to go wrestle. help solve the crisis one way or the other. You know, who knows?
Okay.
We may have shirts on or not. I
Yeah.
don't know. We'll find out. We'll let you know on the next episode of
That's
Survival
right.
Dispatch.
Yeah. Tune in to
Who
find out
won?
the
Yeah,
results
yeah.
of the wrestling match
To get it
between
in.
John.
I would so on a more serious note, I would close us out the way that we close out our podcast. Remember
All
to
right.
take Jesus with you wherever you go and act like you believe. That's our
I
moniker.
like.
That's what we stick by.
Love it. Like it. Like it. Love it. Let's do it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks again, guys, for joining us. Make sure you hit all those important buttons, like, subscribe, comment, and share. Until next time, everybody, stay safe out there.